As I said towards the very end of chapter 3 of Tanya, and we have basically one final concept that we would like to learn about, and with that conclude the chapter. So to understand this final concept, what are we talking about in chapter 3? If you say, I have no clue, as I said, I understand. Pesach has a way of doing that to us. But you might remember, in chapter 3, we are understanding the basic wiring of the godly soul. Meaning in chapter 1, we introduce the concept, you have two souls because you are a piece of God. You are a godly soul. And your godly soul was given an appendage, a challenge, a mission called your animal soul. In chapter 2, we understood how intently godly the godly soul is, where she comes from, and how even as she travels through the myriad levels and levels of worlds, she still is connected to her origin point, and therefore every one of us has such incredible God power because that's who I am. That's where I come from. That's where I still am connected to. That's where I still can go back to. That's who I am. That's my identity. That's being a Jew, a piece of God. In chapter 3, we're understanding the makeup of the godly soul. What's the wiring? Now we know she has 5 levels. Now we're understanding what's going on in every level. And we said on every level, there are 10 powers parallel to God's 10 powers. God's 10 powers of expressions are called spheros. By my soul, those same 10 powers, same names, same order, same grouping, are called bechinos, which means the aspects of the soul. And that was what chapter 3 was dedicated to, really understanding primarily the 3 powers of intellect. There are 10 powers, 3 intellectual, 7 emotional. We did discuss the emotions. We did sort of, in an overarching way, explain them. But the main thrust of the chapter is understanding the 3 intellectual powers, Chachma, Bina, and Das. We have the power of Chachma, that which is really the source of intellect, that which is reaching up to the infinity of God, higher than the box of intellect, and the lower dimension of Chachma, which is reaching down to be the source of intellect, which is developed in the second power of the 3 powers of intellect, which is Bina, understanding, comprehension, analysis, to digest the concepts, chew them down, break them into all the parts, put them together, analyze, synthesize. All powers of understanding is Bina. And then we have a third power called Das. Question is, well, what's left? Chachma is the source of the concept. Chachma is that flash of lightning, that conceptual idea, which then descends into Bina, understanding, where it's developed. That's why I translate Chachma as seminal wisdom. It's this core seminal energy, which then becomes developed in Bina and understanding to be something you completely intellectually comprehend. So great, we intellectually comprehend whatever we're talking about. What's Das? Well, that's what we're now going to understand. What is this third quality of intellect of the 3 mothers of intellect called Das? Remember, they're called the mothers because the function of intellect of the godly soul is to produce the children, the emotion. I'm using my powers of godly intellect to produce godly emotion, because once I have that strong godly emotion, all I'll want is to connect to God through my thought, speech, and deed, being immersed in God's Torah and his commandments. So I need the intellect to create the emotions to make me a person absolutely committed in all my powers of self, in my thought, in my speech, in my action, in my emotion, to be totally invested in my giving to God, serving God, and being one with God through Torah and mitzvahs. Seminal wisdom, Chachma, the flash, the inspiration, the seminal concept, descends into Bina, understanding, and I got it completely. And what do I need Das for? What's Das? Looking inside, we're about 9 lines from the bottom of the page. We are almost done the chapter. So just looking at those last 9 lines, and I'm going to literally Read it all straight. To understand a word, we want to see the first time it is used in Torah. So das, the etymology of da'as is the same root word as yada, to know, right? Most people translate das as knowledge. Well, where do we first see knowledge used to know in Torah? Adam yada es Chava. And Adam knew Chava. Adam knew Chava. Adam knew Eve. What does that know mean? Biblically, meant had relationships with. To know, to be intimately familiar and knowledgeable means relationship. So das, as the first time we see it being used in Torah, is in extreme intimacy, bonding, one with. So the Rebbe says that's what it means. Just like Adam knew Chava, he was intimate with Chava. So das, knowledge, really means a bonding, a fusion. Shemekasher daso, that a person binds up his das, bekesher amitz v'chazak ma'od, with a very, very intense bond. V'yitka machshavto b'choizek, and he fixates his mind with tremendous strength, intensity, in the godly thought, in this case, most broad, overarching godly thought, the greatness of the infinity of God. And he doesn't move his mind from this concept. He doesn't stray. His mind doesn't wander. He doesn't start spacing out. Because even someone who's so understanding, who's wise in the greatness of the infinity of God, if he doesn't bind up his da'as, his mind, if he doesn't fixate his thoughts with tremendous strength and diligence and consistency, lo yoelid binafsho yirv avamitis. This is the point. He will not produce. His soul will not give birth to true love and fear. Ki im dimyonos shav. Just meaningless, vain images, similarities, but not the real deal, not love and not fear. V'al kain, and therefore, hadas hu kiyam hamidos v'chayusan. Das is critical in the formation of the emotions. It's the existence of the emotions. It's their life. And therefore, within das is the foundational emotions of chesed, kindness, love, and gevura, strength, fear, awe, perush, meaning to say, ahava vanfeha. Chesed, kindness, is expressed in the emotion of love and all of her subsidiary branches. V'yir vanfeha, and gevura, strength, discernment, discrimination, judgment, is emotionally expressed in fear and all of her subsidiary branches. And with that, we finish the chapter. So what did we say here? What is the point we're bringing out? The Rebbe is saying that you have chachma, you had a concept, there was some idea, and then you had bina. You really developed the idea. You really focused on the idea. You really developed the idea. But it still didn't become you. And since it's not you, true emotions have not happened. And that's the point of it all, right? That's why I'm reminding you that the reason we're investing our mind in godliness is to have the emotional product. The child, remember we said the intellect are the mothers, the child is the emotion. Well, why do I need an emotional child? I need the emotions because the whole point is me to be a servant of God, is for me to serve God, is for me to be a Jew who makes a difference for God in this world. So when I have this intense, strong, burning, passionate love and awe of God, I'm committed. I'm there. I want it. I want to do everything right. I don't want to do anything wrong. I want to give to God. I want to give to God. I don't want to do anything, God forbid, to harm him. All of this is coming from my emotions, which came from my intellect. So the godly thoughts, creating the godly emotion. Now, this is like the combustion. This is the motor. This is the pull. This is the drive. This is getting me to be one who serves God in my thought, in my speech, and my actions. But the Rebbe is saying, for that to happen, you need das. What does das do? What is das? What are we saying? So the Rebbe said, das, the first time we see it in Torah, Adam yadas Chava, and Adam knew Chava, and Adam was intimate with Chava, means such a bond, such a connectivity, oneness. The Rebbe says, that's das. Now we're talking here intellectually. So intellectually, it's not enough to know the concept. I need to fixate on it. We would sort of say obsess on it. Think and think and think and think and think about the idea that I already know. I acquired knowledge of it in Bina. In Das, it becomes me. If you can imagine anything, let's say we take the concept of Hashgacha Pratis, right? Hashgacha Pratis, you look in the world and everything in the world is direct divine providence. So first we'll go through all three steps. First, you have the chachma, the seminal wisdom, the flash, the wow, everything in this world, it's all coming from God. It's all specifically divinely orchestrated. This didn't work out for me. That's God. This kind, wonderful, competent, responsible person completely messed up, completely messed me over accidentally. That's God. That's your flash. That's your seminal wisdom. That's your chachma. And then you're like, really? That's God? I mean, this person spaced out and missed my 2 emails and didn't do what they were supposed to do. And because of that, I got messed over completely. But why am I blaming God? It's this person. Oh, okay. So let's go to the level of Bina. Let's start learning about this, right? So in Bina, we learn, we think, we digest. So I'm going to be in my space of Bina and really, really learn the sources and really completely understand the concept, all is God. There is nothing but God. The movement of that blade of grass is God. That leaf falling and covering that worm is God. Everything is God. I'm going to study and learn and compare here and compare there and really completely understand it. Wow, it really is God. This nice, meaningful, competent person, God had them miss my emails. God had them not respond. God had me not realize. And I got so messed over and all God. So now intellectually, I know it. But do I feel it? Or in my heart, am I upset? Am I stressed? Am I angry? Am I tense? Am I nervous? Well, if I'm any of the above, I don't yet have Das, because Das means I'm integrating the idea into me, into my psyche. And how do I do that? The Rebbe says by thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it, not letting your mind stray, focusing and focusing and focusing and focusing and focusing and focusing until what's in your brain is in your heart, until that's how you look at the world. And we look at the world and everywhere you see the hand of God and everywhere you see divine providence, Hashgacha Pratis, and everywhere you're like, oh my gosh, that's God. Oh my gosh, that's God. This is God. This is God. This is so cool. This looks so bad, but I know it's God. This looks so good. Am I thanking the person? Yeah, but that's just the messenger. It's God. Because everywhere I look, I see God. I integrated the concept. I have Das. And now the emotional response will be real. The Rebbe says if you don't have Das, your emotions are dimyonos shav. That's the term the Rebbe used. Shav means something meaningless. Like if we think in terms of a falsehood, a lie, there's 2 types of what's called shavuos, oaths that are false. There's shvuas sheker, a false oath, and there's shvuas shav, a meaningless oath. So shvuas sheker is, no, I promise it's daylight. Well, no, it's actually, almost 9 o'clock in the evening and it's night outside. That's a lie. We understand what a lie is. Shvuas sheker. Shvuas shav will be, I promise in the name of God that it's dark outside. That's meaningless. Like, duh, we all know it's dark outside. So that was an oath that had no import, no value, because it was just a waste. It was just nothing. So the Rebbe is saying, if you don't do this step, if you think you can jump from intellectually understanding to feeling emotions, they're going to be shoved. They're going to be meaningless, which means you might think you have them, but you don't. They're just artificial, hollow. What's a hollow emotion? It doesn't get you where you need to be. Where you need to be is a servant of God, passionate and loving God, and therefore doing everything you can to connect and doing everything you can to make sure you don't disconnect. If you have the emotion, but you don't have the follow through, it's shove. It's meaningless. It's fake. You don't really have it. It's not a lie, but it's shove. It's meaningless. Well, why would I have this meaningless? I thought I love God. I think I fear God. Do you see the follow through? Well, it's not there. Why not? Because I don't have the das. Because the das is what makes the emotion real. The metaphor given, this is not mine, the classical metaphor given in Hasidic thought for this, it's a bit of a story, but I'll say it briefly. It's in, as we would say, the olden days, go back 100, 200 years in Eastern Europe. A lot of Jews made their income being innkeepers. They had the krachma, the inn on the road, and the wayfarers would come by. They'd have a place to sleep, give them a meal, mashka. That was how they made their money. And the innkeepers were generally, nice, sincere, and pretty ignorant Jews living far away from any other Jewish settlement and life. But they have children. So often they would hire a malamed, a teacher, to stay in the inn with them for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, as long as it lasted. They would pay him, and he would teach the children, he would give them an education. Now, besides giving them a Jewish education, the teacher was usually the only one in the inn that could actually read and write properly. They're actually literate. So if there's anything that had to do with reading or writing, he also took care of that. So once a letter came for the innkeeper, very unusual, a letter. And he can't read. So he gives it to the teacher who does all of his reading for him. And the teacher looks at the letter. And the teacher reads to the innkeeper the sad news that he's being informed that his father suddenly passed away. When the innkeeper hears this letter, he faints. What's going on? The innkeeper, who's only hearing the news from the teacher, because remember, he can't read, so he couldn't read it himself. He's hearing the news. He faints when he hears that his father died. The teacher, he read the words himself. He sees them. He can decipher them. He knows how to read. He's reading the letter that says that this and this person died. Why didn't he faint? I mean, he should have been more affected than the innkeeper. The innkeeper only heard. He read it himself. Well, that's a very silly question. We all understand the answer. Because it's not his father. The innkeeper's hearing, but it's his father. So he faints. The teacher, it's not his father. He doesn't faint. That is the metaphor given to understand what we mean by das. When a person has das, which I would translate as connectivity, when they have connectivity to the concept, because these are all two intellectual concepts, when they have connectivity to the intellectual concept, it's your father. You're affected. You're invested on the inside. And if you don't have das, you could be like the teacher. You understand it completely, but it's not affecting you. It's not your father. So we want, in terms of studying about God and godliness and Torah and Judaism, we want it to be our father. We want to be affected by what we're learning. Meaning it's very possible for someone to be very smart and know many things and seemingly not be affected at all because they're not engaging their das. Now, I say seemingly because I do trust that Torah has a tremendous power. And if a person is learning the truth of Torah, I am sure on some level they are affected. But to be naturally affected, that the love and fear is flaming inside of you, you need the das. So this is a very practical point the Alter Rebbe is saying, because we can and should look at ourselves. Tanya is all about work. So what's the work here? The work here is to ask myself, so what happens to me when I learn? Am I feeling after I learn? Am I more becoming one with God after I learn? Do I feel more love for God? Do I feel more awe and fear of God? If yes, good. You're doing the right thing. It's great. If no, if I'm learning and I'm developing my mind and I know a lot of things now and they're very cool, but I don't see any difference in doing or not doing a mitzvah. I don't see any difference in my feelings. I don't see any difference in my service, but I understand completely. Probably you're missing the das factor. The das factor, again, which is actualized by taking what you know. It's not the process of learning. That was all in Bina, understanding. Taking what you know and thinking about it, and thinking about it, and thinking about it, and thinking about it until it becomes you. Now, it's interesting, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe said, and he said this, I don't remember if it was in the 30s or 40s, but, quite a while ago. So in the either 1930s or 1940s, and we could have been in Europe when he said this, or when he got to America and he said this. I think it was in Europe. I think this was in the 30s. He said, missing the Hasidim of Yena Zeiten, the Hasidim of previous generations. Now these new wave Hasidim, of the 1930s, these new wave Hasidim, they know so much more than Hasidim used to know, but they're affected so much less. And Hasidim of previous generations knew so much less and were affected so much more. Now, if you think about it, it's almost like the challenge of wealth. You could say, well, Rebbe, what do you expect? If Hasidim in previous generations knew so little, then what did they do with that knowledge? They thought about it and thought about it and thought about it and thought about it, because that was all the knowledge they had. Now we, modern Hasidim of the 1930s, imagine modern Hasidim of the 21st century, where all the knowledge you want is on your phone, is on your computer, a tablet, a book. I definitely own more Jewish books than the average size shtetl in Europe. I have no question. It's all so available. This is a challenge of wealth. The challenge of wealth is to know it and then to think about it again and thinking about it again and think about it again, to take inner ownership of it, for it to become you. I don't remember the context, but a chassid, meaning maybe someone like 20, 30 years ago, he was once speaking to a much younger chassid about, the younger chassid had mentioned a certain mimer, and the older chassid said, oh, yeah, he knows that. And they started talking about it. And the younger chassid, again, I don't remember exactly the ages. We'll pretend one was like in his 20s and one was like in his 80s, was like, oh my gosh, you learned this like 60 years ago. How is it so fresh in your mind? And he said, because I learned the same mimer, the Hasidic discourse, every day for a year. I learned the same thing again and again and again and again. So it's ingrained in my mind. Here, we're not even really talking about intellectual engagement. We're talking about emotions. But the way to reach that emotional response is through the intellect. So through learning again and again, thinking again and again and again and again, the same godly concept. We have a very small little godly concept. Remember, like the previous Rebbe said, Hasidim of previous generations knew so little and were affected so much, because whatever little thing they knew, they really thought about and thought about and thought about. They had real das. They had real connectivity to the concept. Anyone here has had anything in their learning that really like gripped them, and they reviewed it in their minds many times because it really made an impression on them? Any specific concept? I want to ask you what the concept was, unless you want to share that too. Anyone can remember something like that?
The Rebbe had said in a letter to someone at one time, who that you can you need to feel the joy before the good happens.
And you're saying that concept really gripped you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that is true. That is Torah. So you have a concept and the concept really affected you. And now you could take that concept and you could think about it and think about it and think about it. There's lots to think
Right.
about within that concept. And when a person is doing so, that's really creating that das, that connectivity, that
And
ownership, that
and
integration.
the Alter Rebbe doesn't say at the end of the Seder, now the Seder is complete, because where it's supposed to, or it's suggested, or whatever. So I'm focusing in my morning davening on the Mitzrayim and how Hashem opened the sea, and thinking of the dry land, and thinking more of Pesach on a daily basis. And that seems to be have meaning to me.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. Anything that has meaning to you, that's resonating, those are the types of concepts you're going to think and think and think about. So, definitely the idea of that personal exodus, liberation, getting past your Pharaoh, your Paro, getting out of your Egypt, your Mitzrayim, your limitations. So, as you think and think and think on a daily basis of those thoughts, they're becoming you. That's Das, that the
I
concept
wouldn't
becomes
say
you.
I'm necessarily thinking of it in that way. I'm just thinking of picturing it as it was then,
Well, each
and the
time,
greatness
however you're
of
doing it, that's the having that connectivity. And that's creating a meaningful inner relationship. That's not just that you possess the concept intellectually, but that it's become you. That's the point the Alter Rebbe is making. When you take an idea and you think about it and you think about it and you think about it and you think about it, the idea becomes you. Now, a person could say, wow, that sounds like intense. I don't know if I ever do that. I don't know if I ever will do that. I don't know anyone who does do that. But I think, like Esther's sharing, there are ideas that grip us, there are ideas that resonate. And sometimes we take those ideas and we like chew them over in our mind and we think about them and we think about them and we think about them because for whatever reason, they resonated with our soul. And we keep processing them. And as we do so, with that specific concept, we're having Das. We're having a real integration, a real intimacy, a real oneness. And when we have that oneness, then the true emotion can follow. Then we truly will have this love and fear of God because that's the natural product of Das. That Das contains within it naturally these emotions.
I find that for myself, I could want, let's say, a strong connection, and it just everything just seems to be the same, and it can go on for a long time, and then all of a sudden something just hits me and it's very uplifting because it feels like a gift from Hashem.
Well, sometimes we have those breakthrough moments like we're trudging through our Egypt, and then there's the breakthrough. And sometimes the breakthrough is that God lifts us out. And I think, it can go in both ways, but definitely sometimes we're just like trudging. We're going through the motions. We're doing what we have to do, and we're tired and we're drained. We're believing we're doing the right thing, but we're not excited and inspired. We're just doing it, which is also very valuable. And God, in his compassion, sometimes breaks through some of our Egypts for us, sometimes pulls us through when it's just like, we're trying, but God, this is too big for me. And God sometimes does that as well. Anyone else? Anyone else can relate to this idea and think that some of they're sometimes having ideas that really affect them, that they do think about them more than just, yeah, I learned it, I know it, I could give it over as a nice Torah thought, or an idea that really is gripping you, and therefore you're thinking about it again and again.
Say yes. but I won't elaborate.
No problem. I said I'm not going to ask for elaboration. I just am just affirmation is great too. I will definitely say it happens for me. I can learn and sometimes even learn something I've learned before, but just the space I'm in, and like I'm actually paying attention, really getting it. And like, oh wow, there's a click and there's a deep click. And then that specific concept is gripping me. And I think about it quite a lot. Unfortunately, the state of our minds and lives, we could go on and totally forget it. But for a few days, that idea is very real. And it's really coloring and being the prism of how I'm looking at different things. And as I'm thinking about it and thinking about it, there's the das. So I was going to say, so I'm happy that Esther and Sarah are sort of relating to these ideas as something they've done. But what I would say is this is a very practical tool the Alter Rebbe is giving us, especially going back to what Esther was saying about how sometimes we're just like trudging through. When you learn and you have ownership, you feel the emotion. It feels really good. It feels really empowering. It's a powerful feeling. Emotion coming from what you've studied and have made one with you. So it's a wonderful idea as you learn privately or whatever your study sessions are or in classes to be looking out for that concept that grips you a little, that you relate to, and then say, okay, this is the one I want to think about. And consciously think about it and think about it and think about it and keep coming back to it. Make it part of some daily routine, like what you do when you're driving or washing your dishes or morning coffee. Just keep thinking about that idea and you'll see the difference. You should see it's a process of your godly mind, of the godly powers of soul affecting your mind, that as you think and think of the same thing that but you're thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it, it becomes very powerful. I do this sometimes with, let's say, a certain, whatever, let's say discourse that I'll learn multiple times, again and again, the same one. And as I'm learning it, like I already know it, I learned it several times, but I see even in the intellect, in deeper and deeper ways, it becomes powerful to me. First time it was like, yeah, a discourse. But as I'm relearning and relearning it, it becomes very different. It becomes something very alive and very powerful. That's our das space. So if this has happened to you, wonderful. And if this has not happened to you, wonderful. It's good you're here tonight. Try to do this. Try to take ideas of Torah that you understand completely, that you like, so to speak, that you relate to, and think and think and think and think about that idea. Like the most basic one would be the unity of God. All is God, and there's nothing but God, and everything is God. So nothing can throw me, nothing can disturb me, nothing can faze me, nothing can be harmful to me. It's all God. The whole world is God. There's nothing but God. Now, everyone here knows that concept, but imagine having das in that concept. Imagine having ownership of that concept, that you and that concept are one. Imagine how your life would be. So how do you achieve that? The Alter Rebbe says you keep thinking about it. Think about it and think about it and think about it and think about it. Fixate on it. Obsess on it. Keep thinking and thinking and thinking until when you look in the world, that's what you see. And then the love and fear of God should naturally flow because you and this concept are one. So as I'm saying, you can just naturally wait to be affected and inspired by something. Or you can think, well, what have I learned that's worth integrating? And take that idea and just find the time in your day, the time that works for you, to think about the Torah that you know with the goal of becoming one with that Torah and of creating the love and fear that happen naturally when you and Tyra are one. Any other thoughts on this? Anyone else? Malky?
A big one comes to mind of just, I don't know, thinking of Hashem's goodness, his love and kindness, that he does each and every day. Few times I, think about this of like these words of like, I guess his good, his kindness, all his love he does each and every day for us. I think sometimes, especially when I'm feeling down, especially, I think about all the love Hashem does for us. I guess it's like there was like this quote, is there any reason to get depressed? It's interesting because it was from an Agent MS, one of the episode 5. And then that quote, it's like I think about it when I'm down. It's very interesting.
You never know where you can find inspiration from.
Yeah.
But that's great. The idea is beautiful. God's absolute love. That is an idea. Yeah. If we just take that thought, that one true thought of Tyra, God's absolute love for me, God's absolute love for every one of us. And you think about that again and again and again and again. It's Tyra. And the more you're thinking about it, the more you're having das, the more you're having connectivity, the more you and it becomes one, and the emotions naturally flow.